Hey folks, Marcus here from the Fly Shop. Today we're going to tie a little winter steelhead, or really a fall steelhead pattern too if you want it to be. It's an idea I came up with last weekend. We were doing a fly tying class and we kind of tied everything that we had set out for the class, and we had one more fly to do at the end, and I just looked at the table, looked at the materials we had in front of us, and came up with this little idea. And I've been working on it, kind of tweaking it the last few days, so that's what we're going to do today here. Follow along with us. So the shank we're going to use is a 26 millimeter Aquaflies round eye shank. And before you pop it in your vise, we're actually going to slide a cone onto here. You could probably use a couple different size cones for this, but the one I used is just a 3/16. Sure, you could use a bigger one if you wanted to. So I'll just take it out of the vise there. Get it back into position. And then I'm going to start my thread back behind that cone. But I'm not going to go very far up the vise. I'll give you a little sample of why we're not going to go up any further. And the reason, this is the fly we're tying here, and the reason is there's going to be a little cone that lives in the middle of this fly. Tried a couple different versions, one with a cone on front, one with no cone. I knew I wanted some weight in the fly, and having the cone in the middle of the vise just seemed like the best way to achieve that. So the back of the fly here, all this is going to be is a dubbing ball. So you can choose that distance as far as you want, however big the ball you want. And I'm going to trail this, trail the hook behind here with 30-pound fire line, so I'm going to cut off a fair amount of this stuff. Fold it in half. And then the hook that I'm going to start using pretty much from here on out, we'll see how it goes, is the Owner No Escape hook. And today I'm going to do it in a size 2. And I like this hook because it comes barbless, so it's just one less thing that I have to do. And have had some pretty decent reports from folks on the landing ratio on this hook, so I'm going to give it a go. So I just lace the fire line through the hook there, and then I'll take any simple bulk rubber tubing, cut off about an inch or so, slide it right over the ends of that tubing. And then the biggest thing with any type of rig like this is you just want to make sure that tubing seats over the eye. So we got the wire through the eye of the hook, and then the round rubber tubing over the top of it. And you always got to just leave, this is kind of hard to describe, but if you look in the vise there, you've got a section of shank that's locked in the vise, so you need to leave about that much space for the tubing to fit over it, is the idea. You don't want to tie that tubing too far back that it just hangs back behind the fly, or too far forward that you don't have enough room to scrunch it in there. And this fly, I'm actually going to tie the hook down, which I don't do very much, but it'll help with the rabbit strip that we put on later. Just keeping the hook out of the way of the rabbit. So I'm just going to make nice consistent wraps with this fire line on top of there. And often with my flies, if you watched our videos before, you see that I kind of just come up the shank and come back down without going through the eye. I'm going to start going through the eye. I think it's just a good thing to be in the practice of. So I'm going to lace that fire line through the cone and through the eye. And then I'll do the other side. It's good to just give those a good tug after you go through the eye. And then I'm going to come back through the cone. And back through the cone again. And that's just, I've never had a hook pull out the way I used to do flies, but it's just a really good thing to be in the practice of. So when I tie this off, I can just clip it back to the length of the shank right now. And for right now, I'm just going to tie these tag ends off in the back, not in the front. So I'll wrap them, making sure all that slack is out in there, and I'll just wrap them on the bottom side of the shank right there. Make sure to get some nice, good tension in there. And when you do flies like this, it's good after you've laced it through the eye of the fly to make sure that you've got enough room for your line through there. So this is 30-pound fire line, a little bit thicker than 15-pound Maxima, so we should be good to get any line through there that we will be needing to later on. So I'll just get that cone out of the way, and I'm going to start a dubbing loop in the back here. Spin that guy. Give it a few twists and attach my dubbing twister here. And then for the dubbing ball on this fly, I'm just going to use Fusion Dub in Pink Lady. And I want quite a bit of dubbing, about twice as much as I normally use in a station, because I want to just fill up that area that we're working with here. So I'll lace it in the loop. Give that a good spin. And then I'll use my brush. And I'll start to wrap from the very back. Making sure to get at least one full wrap kind of directly on top of itself. Come forward with that tag end. And that wrap that goes right over itself is really helpful in getting that ball shape that you're looking for. And you could pick that out more if you wanted. I'm just going to leave it. And then I'm going to slide my whip finisher right on the end of that. Clip the thread, and I'm going to throw just a touch of head cement on top of that thread. And it'll be hidden with that cone over time, so I would be pretty surprised if that thread went anywhere, even if you didn't glue it. But getting that glue in there will kind of just keep our cone further locked in, which is a good thing. And then I'm going to start my thread on the front side of the cone. And I'm going to work all the way up here and just start by locking down this extra wire that we have in the fly and working back so that that cone is nice and tight on that dubbing ball. And that cone, it's obviously the weight in the fly, but it's going to act like the prop for our next station. So I'm going to start another dubbing loop. Give myself some space on this one. And I'm going to put predator wrap in this loop. And in this color combo, I think the purple, gold, and black is a really nice color. So I just take, I'm just going to clip about an inch or so off of the pack there. Kind of clip these straight. And I just hold that in my hands and clip about an inch or so. Let's slide this in this loop. I'm going to double that. Get another clump of it there. Open up the loop one more time. Thing I've found with predator wrap is if you're trying to get two sections of it in the loop at the same time, and you don't do it from the get-go, and you do it in two sections like I did, you just want to open that loop really small the second time, not a big wide opening. So I've got it all in the loop. You could spend some time with your scissors spacing it out, making sure it's nice and even, and then you just give it a good spin. And if these fibers, as you spin, start to get trapped or caught in something else, you just pick them out. And you're just looking for that really spiny, pokey look like that right there. This stuff is really poking out. I'm just going to take a little bit of water on my fingertips and fold it back. And it'll just help when I start to lay it down. That'll just help almost make it lay down like a hackle, and everything will be going more or less in the direction we're looking for. So I'm going to start right on that thread wrap that leaves off where the cone is. And each little part of the wrap, as these fibers try to jump forward, I'm going to grab them and just make sure that everything's going in the direction that I want it to. A little bit of water goes quite a long way in that regard. Just going to capture the end of that loop. Come up and cinch it. Then I've got some fibers kind of jutting forward, so I'm going to pull them all back. And just make sure I have a nice clean workspace for the front part of the fly. And that cone is just so hidden in there. Like you almost, if you picked it up in the bin, you almost wouldn't know it's there. But it helps push up this predator wrap, which is a nice little effect. And I think you could do that with quite a few different flies, kind of slide a cone in there on some unweighted flies just to give it a little more weight. So with the length that I've got this hook will sit back about 1.5 inches behind the fly. You have kind of free range as far as you want to make this fly big or small. I'm going to pick a piece of rabbit that kind of drapes past the hook a little bit, because this will be a bug that I'll use this weekend. And we've got some green water, but you could, it's worth saying, you could have that hook hanging right behind there, or even use a smaller shank and just tie a real small little fly, which could be kind of cool in the fall. But with the water we've got now, I'm going to get something a little longer going here. And I always peel off the top fluff off of that rabbit for a tie-in point. I like it to hang just past the hook, so I'm going to kind of roughly grab that spot I'm looking for, peel back all this rabbit, and cut it right where it's peeled back. And that gives you that nice drop-off angle off of the strip, which I like to see. I'm just going to tie this guy in. Getting a few nice hard wraps. And then I'm going to add a little flash to the side of the fly, and I'm going to do two different types of flash. The first one I lay down is going to be ice wing fiber in black, and it's just going to kind of fill out the fly. So I just kind of pulled some of this out here, and the way I like to use it is I just tie in the near side and fold it over and tie in the far side. And I kind of hold it and clip it at different lengths. And it just kind of helps fill out the fly a little bit. I'm going to add just 2 strands of Krinkle mirror flash in purple. Same thing, I always tie in my near side first. Not that you have to, but I get a nice good wrap on that near side, and then I fold it over to the far side. And then I'll clip these guys to length. No hard and fast rule about the length of flash. Some flash I like to hang longer than the fly. Some I like it to hang inside the fly. So to give this thing a little bit more body, I'm going to start another loop up at the front of the fly. Leave this one room. I'll try and finish that loop right where we tied off this rabbit. And the front loop is going to be MFC Ostrich. And I played around with a few different versions, I guess lengths of Ostrich. And usually on the front of the fly when I'm tying in Ostrich, I'm working with, 2.5 inches of the feather. On this fly, this Ostrich is almost going to act like a hackle. So I'm going to shorten that up compared to what I normally do and work with just under 2 inches, around 2 inches. I'm going to open up this loop. Give that Ostrich a spin. Same thing with the Ostrich as the Predator wrap. I do like to wet it down. If you do it dry, they tend to jump in a bunch of different directions. So I'm just gonna start this guy right on top of that rabbit. Finish it up right at the end of the rabbit there. Come around. Clip it off real short. Tough to get a sense of the action of the fly sometimes when it's all wet like that. But it just helps so much. Those feathers tend to just jump so far forward. And then with our remaining space at the top of the fly, I'm going to tie in quite a bit of Schlappen to help us take up that space. And I always kind of peel away some of the more fuzzy part of the stem. And then I just peel it back, get it all laying down. And like I said, I'm going to work with quite a bit of this feather here, because I like a little bit of shoulders on this fly. Come all the way front. Clip off the top part of that feather. And I'll grab my hackle pliers. I kind of hold that stem perpendicular to the shank and straighten things out before I start wrapping. And the most important part is kind of that motion right there. You might be able to see it right here. When I start to wrap like that, you want to see that stem turn like it just did. Because it'll just help so much with how that feather lays down. You want to make sure these wraps of this stem don't go directly on top of each other, but just move forward slightly. Move my thread forward a little bit. And that just helps fill out that front of the fly. You could also use another cool feather to use in there, I think would be intruder feather prop, would give it an even more full top. So I'm just gonna tie off this stem here. Clip it real short. I'm gonna just get a couple good thread wraps right at the top of the fly. And that's the bug. Don't have a name for it. I usually don't name my flies because they're most often variations on someone else's fly. This one has some unique aspects to it. But all I can say is, like I said at the beginning of the video, this was an idea that popped in my head when we were doing a class and we didn't have any other flies set out to tie in the class. And that's one of the more important points to keep making with these steelhead flies is the fly itself is not super important. It matters how you fish the fly and the water that you fish it in. And probably the most important part of that is if there's fish in the water, if you have fish in the river that you're fishing. So I really think steelhead flies a lot more than trout and saltwater, where the fish are actually keying on specific things. Not that our fish don't do that at sometimes, but it just gives us this freedom to tie what we want, different colors. I think this fly would be great in black, olive, bunch of different colors. Pink would be cool. But this is the first one that I've kind of got dialed in. So thank you very much for tuning in. That's a little winter steelhead fly that we came up with on the fly last weekend. Hope it catches you some fish. Thank you.